we are the 30th of October here in France. It's 13:34 p.m. 1:34 p.m. and I intend to just record a video because probably not probably I will now I will make videos mostly on the French channel Phénoménologie de l'esprit. There's a possibility that I might make videos in English on this channel, but I can no longer, I mean I could, but switching from one channel to the other because I know that depending who follows, I have almost no followers, but those who follow one channel or the other, they are not the same person, they do not speak the same native language, they do not share the same cultural references, etc., etc. So that's one of my problems. And I just want to talk briefly, precisely about my intellectual legacy, one might say. But first, I just said when I started to record the video, the document, I have shared almost all my documents, although I keep improving them. This is just the phenomenal appearance of spirit. Very simply, I've already shared this document, it's slightly different, but these are the categories which structure the development of spirits in the Western world at large. Mostly, actually, it's mostly. I will not comment. People who are following this, as of now, I have 46 followers or subscribers, and there are between 1 and 3 persons who put likes on most of my videos. So I have let us say between maybe 5 and 6 followers, let us say. If they have followed me this far, they probably, I don't need to comment everything, they are intelligent enough, I guess. But just what I want to say, do we see the categories? Yeah, we see. Do we see? Yeah. It's each category exists because of the other. This is simplified, but that's the yin and yang, and each contains within itself an aspect of the other. I will just take one example. Individualism and collectivism. There are usually leftists are collectivists, but there are individual leftists, and right-wingers, they are individualists, but there are right-wing collectivists. That's socialism, communism on the left, plus liberal individualism, what in the US they call liberals, and on the right, this is libertarianism, and also fascism. Yeah, and anti-racism, racism, they are racist on the left, although they claim to be anti-racist, and they are anti-racist on the right, libertarians, who, yeah, usually, so or traditionally sometimes, yeah, and yeah, it goes for most of the categories, and that's the yin and yang illustration, and what has happened in the West. So that's a simplified view of the spiritual life of the Western world. Is that over the past, officially, the past 70 years, let us say, especially the past 50 years, it has switched more and more towards the left. And what is happening, the process of spirit, is that now it is recovering by getting more on the right. There is a return towards the right, populism, conservatism, patriotism, nationalism, etc., etc., because it tries to re-establish the balance in the middle. That's what happens in the Western world. And these categories, they are drawn mostly from the intellectual and spiritual life of the United States of America, but empirically I live in France, and I know that they can broadly be applied as well in France and also in Germany, England, Scotland, Australia, etc., in most Western countries, and eventually in all democracies. But there are topics which are specific to the West, anti-racism because of diversity, cultural Marxism, etc., but it applies to most democracies, and eventually all countries, because singular, particular, universal, but it's predominantly the Western world. And what I intend to say, I will make videos mostly in French from now on, because I explain to the one or two persons who like my content, you have good tastes, or maybe not, no, but intellectually you have good tastes, but the taste of the good intellect can be quite bitter sometimes. Oh yeah, I will put the link, I will put the link to 4 videos that I've watched on the channel Psych2Go, I think, or Psychological Channels, who are really, I've watched these videos over the past few days, just the one before, about highly intelligent people. I suffer from most of the problems, or I am characterized by most of the determinacies of highly intelligent people. Yeah, so it has helped me a lot. These channels that I have promoted on the document, Make the School Revolution Great Again, I've made the most systematic videos. They have to be improved because my system consists in improving itself constantly in a way. But I have put playlist with the most rigorous videos. That's why I do not make an introduction in every video, but I have categorized some of the most rigorous videos in about logic and the system, yeah, in playlist. So about intelligence, about this channel, Psych2Go, or the psychological channels, they are of great help because that's Spinozian psychology, namely to understand one's own determinism. I mean, it's not here. That's the good aspect of Spinozism that may be illustrated by the yin and yang as well, namely to understand the determinism. In my case, I speak for myself, and here it's not singular, particular, universal, although it is, but it's a particular which applies to a quantitatively very tiny proportion of the population, because I have an IQ of 131 broadly, which is in the 98th percentile. In a country, France, who is the IQ is 98, it's between, officially it's 98, but it's slightly lower maybe because of dysgenic processes, that's the truth. But then there's the Flynn effect, but according to the works of Richard Lynn, that I trust in terms of competence in his field of endeavor, it's 98, which is quite the same as the US, and slightly lower than Nordic countries of Europe. But yeah, so that's just a quantitative determination. And these videos, they talk about the lack of emotional intelligence of highly quantitatively intelligent people. But simply, let's just say it's overall 100, which is the average means for predominantly European populated countries, wherever they are on the planet, Canada, US, Australia, etc. That's 100. It's very high in comparison to the vast majority of countries on this planet. So yeah, so I belong to a group of very intelligent people in terms of quantitative intelligence, just quantitative intelligence, in a country which belongs to a group of very intelligent countries in terms of the median IQ and the distribution. And yeah. What do I want to say? Yeah, I want just to talk slightly about what I have produced, what I have said, done, etc. I will also put the link to a video, one of my own videos that I watched yesterday about the presentation of the mind of God, the formal presentation of the categories. It was a couple of months ago. Yeah, a couple of months ago. And the switch in my mindset has been important because I've realized that I have lost myself in pure abstractions. But actually, I have found myself in pure abstractions. And now I try to... That's the mythology... Prometheus stealing the fire from Zeus, giving to mortals, etc., etc. That's just that I elevated my mind by reading, thinking constantly about mostly the writings of Hegel, and now I kind of incorporated the view of the system and logic, not completely, but in my mind. And now it's not that I go down spatially, it's that I have what I call my empirical life. Now I can interpret my empirical life through the lens of speculative, metaphysical, logical categories. And this explains why I intend to switch channels, and to express myself, as long as I do this on the internet, on YouTube, publicly, predominantly in French, because I've understood recently that the singular, my name is Luca, Luca Guts, that's my name, as an empirical individual. I have thought for more than 4 years now, when I thought about this, that I was the negative, which is the root of all evil. Because within reality there is evil. But it's not completely true, and it's more complex than just good versus bad, and I was deceived, I have been deceived by this dualistic view. Namely, I thought that I was just the root of all the evil and just negative. But there is not just negativity in me. That's what I have discovered over the past few months, in a way. So I'm just explaining to those who have been following me constantly, the 5 persons maybe, I have lived in 2019, the entire year almost, believing that I was the root of all evil, just the negative. Most of this year, starting in February, I have long held the belief, not only, but depending on my switch of mood, depending on my level of understanding, I was still in the mood of saying, it depends, it has been fluctuating over the months, but there have been moments where I knew myself to be just negative, and I believed myself to be just negative, and I have lived through a constant moral struggle, especially over the past few months, and I will just illustrate, because I've been, I will first explain theoretically what has been happening, what will happen. I have understood recently that the reason why I have constantly failed to communicate is first because I haven't done anything, not everything, but anything to make my videos successful, because I have tried to keep certain standards in terms of intellect and not go completely, I've tried this maybe, religious revelation. No, I've tried to be faithful to my mentor, Hegel, namely to remain serious, slightly serious. And there has been a constant downgrade in terms of the formal aspect of seriousness, but I've understood that the more I lower down my intellectual standards, which means, to illustrate, the video where I just present the pure abstractions of the categories, the videos where I do not plan, I do not read my notes, where I do not even follow a structure. Sometimes I used to make videos where I just commented a rigorous document, then I follow notes, therefore I prepare the videos and I follow my notes, or I just make a broad structure of the video, namely I will talk about this, and then I just completely improvise, like this video, and I realized that when I improvise, I had slightly more success, from 0 or 1 like to 2 or 3, because actually the kind of spiritual truth that I've been trying to share is so far removed from ordinary consciousness that I have not been able to communicate because of the sheer complexity, and this explains my high intelligence. I have lived isolated almost completely since 2009. Over the past few months, I've had, I wouldn't say a social life, because I have no friends, although I spoke with Frédéric, the person who is homeless. He has a name, and I've had a few conversations for 10 minutes, but it has helped me, and with the shopkeepers sometimes, and it has helped me. But or the persons who sell products, produce their produce on their market. I've had a few interesting conversations over the past few months, and this is socialization in a way. And it had happened to me in 2020 and 21. But here there's a mix here. In 2020 and 21, I was, not fully socialized because I had no friend, etc. But I was within society and disconnected from my metaphysics. And now in 2022, I'm living with my metaphysics every day, and I am a few hours a day I go out and I'm connected with people, with having ordinary conversations. I have both aspects in mind, what I call Hegel, and the empirical reality. And going outside a few hours, a couple of hours a day, while studying the rest of the day, or thinking, or working, or meditating, it has helped me tremendously. Because in 2020 and 21, I had forgotten Hegel, one might say, and now, now I think about both aspects, what I call Hegel, the metaphysics, and the empirical reality. And talking with ordinary persons, it really has helped me understand a lot about reality. And I have confessed over the month and even the years in 2019 on my channel, all my sins, all my mistakes, all my errors. I have kept humiliating myself, hurting myself morally, downgrading myself, laughing at myself, confessing all my sins, all my errors, etc., etc. Not just that, but I have done this. I've been very self-critical. As an empirical individual. Because I compare myself, to the idea of morality, in a sense, to be a perfect, I would say a perfect Christian. In the good sense, not the perfection which includes negativity within itself, but a good Christian in the sense that, in this sense, my moral has been Christian, but not. But it's also true of pagan morality, because the modern pagans are also virtuous in this sense, more than most Christians. Yeah. What I want to say is, I've constantly downgraded myself morally and intellectually by thinking myself as being ignorant and dumb and stupid, etc., etc. But I have realized that the reason why I have downgraded myself so much and so often is because I see within all the aspects of reality, all the negativity, a reflection of myself. All the people starving, being abused, raped, killed, etc., all over the world, I do not constantly think about this, otherwise I would become completely insane probably, but I take this as a part of my world. I will not be a hypocrite and say, I spend most of my day saying, what happens in Congo or Bolivia or Laos. I don't. That's what I've been saying. I care more about Europeans, but I know that this is an aspect of my reality, that there are people suffering every day within my reality, and I think of this as being an expression somehow of myself. But I've asked myself this question: why is it my soul? Is it my mind? And I have a tendency to see just the negative aspect. That explains why I have been very Christian. When I feel weak, I identify with a Christian, an ordinary Christian, namely in need of the help of the God of the Bible, and I feel weak, etc., etc. I seek salvation from the help of an imaginary God, maybe. And that's here. I will say something very, very complex in a way. The more I retreat in my formal Christian self, what I call formal Christianity, is those who follow the Bible, etc. I mean, the Bible, the message, okay, but not rigorously, I retreat into what I call my formal Christian self, and the more I do this, the more I become negative, not morally, but in a sense of negation. I become a fanatical puritanical Christian, a fanatical Protestant, self-hating, self-negating, who hates everything because everything is a sin, everything is sinful. And in this sense, I've had, and I still have a tendency to be a fanatical, puritanical Christian, partly. This is what explains why I identify so much with America. There are many other reasons, but it explains one of the aspects, namely that it explains why I feel more comfortable when I imagine myself talking to Americans. But the problem is that America, as I say, is a perfect country. There are all the aspects, and the people that I think are Americans, actually, I'm not. They still do exist. There are still Protestant communities here and there, but yeah, precisely, they are a tiny minority. But I've been influenced by this puritanical self for good and for bad. For bad, that's really here Nietzsche against Christianity, one might say. No, but seriously, to self-hate constantly, here that's when I become negative, because I will say what I think while I'm in a stable mood. The Christians who hate everything about the world, about themselves, about life, and who praise God, God created life and the world. So if you hate everything and you praise God, you are schizophrenic. I've had this tendency many years ago, and still I've had this tendency over the past few months, sometimes. This is a wrong interpretation. Yeah. But it exists, and I understand why. Yeah, but the good aspect of puritanical Protestant, American, not only American, but puritanical Christianity is really virtue, self-mastery, standards, work, etc. And this, in this sense, it's good, and in this sense, the modern pagans, the European gods and goddesses, they are puritanical, not in a sense of hating everything precisely. They enjoy being in life while being virtuous. I mean, I've not checked, but I guess they are. They are virtuous in terms of integrity, honesty, work, dedication, etc., etc. And in this sense, they really are good Christians for the good. Yeah, and I draw inspiration from them. Yeah, when I'm in my religious mode, which I have been recently, and what I want to express is, yeah, so I have been very influenced by this aspect, and I have come to believe, which a part of me still do, that just being attracted by I call it about healthy attraction, the unhealthy, healthy attraction, I need to be attracted physically by attractive women. I've called this a sin, and in a way I still do. Like, for me, the idea of kind of sex is a sin, or outside of marriage, or with. So I have this aspect, and only the Americans can understand this. The French. That's why I am more connected to America spiritually, in a way, and yeah, this is really important. It can be thought to be comical. It's partly comical, but it's serious in the sense that I've watched many hours and hours of American content of various kinds on the internet, and the Americans they tend to have a focus, an emphasis, let us be diplomatic, an emphasis on sexuality that in continental Europe does not exist, not to this extent. Namely, the idea that the not only the American, but the English and predominantly the Americans, like it's kind of a taboo subject in America. It's not the case in France and probably Germany, Italy, etc. In a sense, they are more virtuous. And we, here I speak as a continental European, not always, but here just with the culture of continental Europe, modern continental Europe, we are decadent in comparison with the Americans. But actually the Americans, they are decadent in comparison with their own standards. Because they have, this is why America is kind of schizophrenic, because there is the puritanical, virtuous, restraint aspect, and there is this is the country which produces pornography, the sexualization of women, etc., etc. So there are the two aspects. Yeah, because there are all the aspects in America on all topics, but this is just an illustration. So I have had really negative moments in my process where I thought that everything was a sin. I take another example. I went, I still do, on the market to buy organic local products, and I have had moral conflicts. It is explained in the videos about high intelligent people. In one of the videos, the 4 videos combined, I think they make 27 minutes. They are really 4 short videos. They explain a lot. That I have been morally tormented for what could be considered insignificant topics, like if I buy fruits or vegetables coming from South America, there is the pollution, the transportation, it brings pollution. But if I don't, the workers in South America, if everyone acted like I did, we do not buy products from the outside if we can afford, they will be out of work, and then white guilt. So if I buy products from, say South America, but it could be Northern Africa, or if I buy products from, or even southern France, if I buy products which are not local or far removed, it brings pollution and climate change, white responsibility, white guilt. But if I don't, I leave people out of work, more miseries to non-whites, white guilt. This is the kind of insanity that I've been thinking about. So every tiny decision has been a moral struggle. If I buy supplies for myself, it means that I care for myself, but I am negative. I've said, I am the devil. If I take care of myself, if I identify with the devil, that's a sin. So I have to make things as hard as possible for myself because I'm worthless. But this is an aspect of negativity, namely to be self-negating, to feel worthless constantly, because here I explain Christian theology, or the misunderstanding that there are those who say, you have to be fearful of God, repent. And there are those who say, if you do not repent, God will torment you, you are in league with the devil, etc. And then, so if you assert yourself, also, if you assert yourself, so if you show any sense of confidence or pride, they will say, pride is a sin. I have thought like this. I have been reluctant to be proud of some of my good achievements, which would be considered good and noble, maybe not, but okay at least, not a reason to be ashamed, just because of, pride is a sin. I have thought this, but if you start saying to people, do not be proud of anything you've achieved because Christian theology, some interpretation says that pride is a sin. People, I've not done this in a religious language, but I understand how they function. They start to fight back and to say, but hey, I have achieved this, I have had a good job, my children, they succeed in school, I've gotten a diploma, I have overcome a disease, I've been in hospital and I recovered, whatever. They extract from their own empirical life the things that they have achieved, that every human being needs a sense of self-worth that is gained through achievement over overcoming problems in order to have a sense of self-worth. And I've had this tendency from the insane Christian theological perspective saying that pride is a sin. If someone says, I had cancer, I overcome cancer, I'm proud. Pride is a sin, repent. No, this is completely insane. And I've had this tendency, not, of course, about people who have cancer, but about myself and saying things that are genuinely good that I did for myself and for others, which are genuinely good in the consideration of most things good. And I said to myself, but if I feel any sense of pride, I have to torment myself because... So I have been deceived by really the fanatical aspect of Christian theology, the self-negating. But here, that's the connection. So there are the Christians who still think like this, the fanatical Puritans, but then if life is a gift from God, if you hate everything about life and about the world, you are not being a good Christian. Precisely, you are being anti-Christian because you reject everything that God has given you. So that's why in Christian theology, Christianity, anti-Christian, it's more complex than just good versus bad, because there can be one interpretation. If you are confident, you are being anti-Christian because you lack humility. But if you constantly say, "Oh, I am worthless," God Almighty is great, the Lord, praise the Lord, we are worthless, etc. God does not enjoy this either, because what would God think? Oh, the people that I created, they hate themselves constantly, they think everything is despicable, etc. That's the kind of thing that I've been thinking about. So I've tried to find a proper balance, but I've had a tendency to have excesses in the negative sense of self-negation. And I understand myself, I'm intelligent enough. I will not suddenly say, "Oh, I am all good," etc. No, I am willing to take the negativity. I deserve, because I have exteriorized negativity and because I really am negative. But I will, now, as long as I live, I will behave in being more confident. I have reasons to be more confident, not overconfident, because that's a sin, but simply I've realized recently that I am not completely worthless on an empirical level. And even if I keep saying, "Oh, I am worthless, no one is going to save me. God is not going to save me." So I've understood that God, the entity that I call God as external for myself, he expects, that's what I believe, for me to trust myself. To be fair about the negativity and the positivity, but my motto, is as long as I live, I will try to improve myself. And improving myself, it doesn't mean make a bodybuilding and taking care of my appearance. I have done this many years ago. That was a mistake. That I did not understand the message. But no, for me, improving myself means minimalism and asceticism. These are my choices. Rigor in my work, and also the willingness to struggle, not mindlessly, but to struggle against myself. And here it's connected with the main topic of the video, that my struggle, I have many inner struggles, but I've understood recently, it's important, I express what I've understood, that I can no longer live in a constant state of deception, in a sense that, I could, but I have chosen to be congruent with myself, inspired by Stella. I have to speak the same truth to everyone, either on the internet, which is made available potentially to everyone, but I speak in English, so the ideas that I share, if we extract the universal ideas, they are universal, but they are expressed with the particular limitations of the English language, the fact that I do not speak English as good as a person who is a native speaking person, with my own particular and singular determinations, etc. That's UPS, but I've understood that I cannot live a double life by sharing thoughts, very highly metaphysical, complex thoughts in English on the internet, and keep living my day-to-day life and to be tormented. This is the cause of my torment, which is being reflected in the world. So I have to be willing to balance both, in a sense that what I intend to do, I will not go out and speak religious truth. I thought I had to do this, but really, would I want people to do this? No, that would be insanity. I try to control myself, and what I try to do, in a sense, I am constantly forced to lie in one way or another, because to speak the truth would be to speak the totality equally to everyone. And here it's simply not possible. Here in this, I do not feel guilty for not speaking this truth, because it's impossible. And what I try to do is to connect my universal ideas with my empirical self, Luca, namely to stand for my ideas in my day-to-day life, but not at the expense of my public life, in a sense that I could go out and talk to people for the entire day. That would be the Buddhist Jesus type of life. Maybe I will do this at some moment, I don't know, but as of now, what I intend to do is I go out to do my daily conveniences a few hours a day, while trying to share parts of the truth with the people that I've been directly connected to a certain extent, because I'm intelligent enough to understand that it's not that, that's the sense of judgment in a good sense, and I've suffered from this, namely, not all people are capable of receiving the same amount of truth at the same time. So in a sense, it's deception, but here I do not feel guilty for this, because it's the same kind of deception to expect. I take an analogy. If level 5 years after graduation in America, lectures on physics or psychology of a level 5 years after graduation, you cannot give these lectures to first years people after graduation. Here, my knowledge of the the formal aspect of the American educational system, or any educational system, is not sufficient. But what I mean is that, in a sense, the people who teach physics or law or economics or anthropology in university, they lie to their students, in a sense that they are intelligent. It's not that they lie, simply it means that they are intelligent enough to understand that you cannot speak the same truth with a person who has just had 2 weeks of training in anthropology and someone who has had 5 years. Yeah. In a sense, I have failed in an autistic way, because I spontaneously believe that everyone would be as intelligent as me, because I experience myself as being stupid. And the fact that I haven't understood this is part of it's a proof of my stupidity. But what I lack is partly social intelligence, emotional intelligence, and yes. So in a sense, this is my struggle, and here I have chosen, I would say, the difficult path. In a way, yes. First, because I know that eventually, maybe I could maintain the status quo for a few weeks, a few months. I could try to delete some of my videos and pretend, but I won't. Here, I will obey moral principles. I have to take responsibility for all the things that I've said, knowing that not everyone would get the same aspect of the truth at the same time, so there will be misunderstanding. I have to live with that. Maybe to die with that. That's my joke. But as long as I can, I will try to improve myself. And also, eventually, I have to connect the universal and the singular. And that's what I've understood recently, that Luca, I will not say Luca is important, because that would be a bipolar, a dissociative identity disorder. That I am important, not just for the bad, partly for the bad, because I have vices, wickedness, addictions, I suffer from negativity, etc. But I understand myself, not completely, but more and more. And I have to accept that me, as an individual, I am not completely worthless, and it's not just my abstract universality, my categories that are good, and precisely I've understood that when I speak with my abstract categories, I receive almost nothing but negativity. And I will not suddenly switch and try. I have partly tried, maybe I partly need, but that's what I'm doing with this kind of video. Namely, I will not suddenly give up on my rigor and systematicity completely. I have given up by lowering the standards, but I've understood that people, what they expect unconsciously is to be talked to in an intelligible way for them. And if the message that I have to share is so complex that no other except a few tiny minority of people can vaguely understand, the problem doesn't come from the people, it comes from me. In this sense, I have to struggle against my nihilistic tendencies, namely, what I have tried to do consciously, I don't know what the consequences will be, simply to... It's one way, it's an easy path. No, it's not easy, but it's a difficult path in a sense that what I consciously intend to do in my coming videos on the Phénoménologie de l'esprit is to try to upgrade the intellectual level of the French-speaking persons. But the truth on the internet, if it's the truth, it's valid for everyone. But then, like I said, there are the limitations of language, culture, etc., etc. Because trying to communicate with very intelligent English-speaking persons is very difficult, and I have failed, or I have succeeded in reaching the people I wanted to talk to, but then I screwed everything up because I was too honest with Apollonian Germ and with Caroline. So my own honesty backfired.
in this sense, I have been punished, and I am being punished, and I still will be punished for being honest, for being moral. I need this to me and God, that I am not completely moral, but I will not let people say I am completely bankrupt. Maybe there are some moments where I have, will be, I don't know, but I'm not completely bankrupt because I act. Sometimes I take dangerous decisions for myself, founded upon a sense of moral duty. I do not do this constantly, because to be a Kantian, in this sense, to be constantly, every waking hour, to act according to a principle, it's impossible. It's really here. I'm not in a mood to say no. It's really impossible. I just take an example. I said to myself, when I see cigarette butts in the street, I will pick them up because it's not acceptable the trash laying on the street. I did this for, let's say, 3 minutes, but I cannot, because if I spend my day picking up cigarette butts here, that would be really kind of an insane Kantian. Because what if everyone acted like me? Clean streets would be clean. Yeah, but what if people who are competent in what they do? Here it's me producing good intellectual content, although no one understands as of now, and maybe they will never understand completely or whatever, but I can produce good intellectual content, I can produce goodness, really, and now it has been by working and ordering my immediate environment. So if I spend my day doing, it's not useless, but doing job which requires very little competence, I have been willing to do this. Here I illustrate, yesterday I spent my entire day cleaning my room. I could have called the help of a cleaning lady. I wanted to do this myself because I want this to be done my own way. And once it is done, it's cleaned. I don't need to redo it. I know it will be a little bit of 5 minutes here and there to keep the order, but I have invested an entire day in cleaning my room, aspects of my room. Now it's clean. I don't need to waste any more time. So that's not the paradox, the dilemma of Ricardo, the competent comparative advantages, the competent boss. Does he hire a secretary because he is better at doing the secretary job and doing what he does as a CEO or a boss? I mean, that's the example which is being used in schools to teach. But actually, that's wine and drapes. I don't know how to call this. Cloth, wool, whatever, the cloth to make clothes, and wine, Portugal and England, Ricardo, etc. If the boss, the CEO, if he makes everything for himself, that's Robinson Crusoe. Again, the Anglo-Saxons, very intelligent, these Anglo-Saxons. I never doubted their intelligence. Maybe I did? I don't remember. No, but seriously, here I suffer because I live in a world of my own, in a way, when I'm in front of my computer and I speak, and I have so much admiration for the Anglo-Saxon. That's why I trash talk them. But when I say the Anglo-Saxon, of course I think about the best, the scientists, etc. I love them, of course, but I am very demanding. But their empiricism is very useful. I've reread Hegel. He kind of acknowledges this. But yeah, what was I saying? So yeah, I have this tendency to, here I will speak a little bit, but that's really one of my it hurts, it's my suffering, and it's kind of the pathetic suffering, but not pathetic in a sense shameful, pathetic in a sense of pathos, namely it's really a profound suffering in a sense that I have experienced myself as being incompetent as an empirical individual in comparison to the intellectual standards that I've been in tune with. But actually, I'm not incompetent. But here, my sense of guilt. I've always had exceptional grades in school as an empirical individual. When I'm invested, when I'm interested in trying to achieve, I achieve very high standards. But here's my self-neglecting self, in a sense that I am intelligent enough to understand that the reason why in this limited field I am very competent, I have been when I was a teenager, and recently when I resumed school a couple of years ago, I have been excellent, but I do not take much credit for myself because I'm intelligent enough to understand that it's determined partly by IQ,
which I do not consciously, I'm not responsible for my IQ, because in an official narrative it's tied to genetic and environment. So I am intelligent enough. The videos about intelligence, they talk about this. I am, in this sense, I am very, very demanding with myself as an empirical individual when I care about a topic. And in this sense, I am a fanatical, not a religious fanatical, but a perfectionist. Yeah, a perfectionist. And I don't want the video to be too long. I just explained that when I talk to ordinary people, more or less seriously, if they feel that they are competent, namely people with a sociological status, they react negatively. And here I have the emotional intelligence to read them, because they feel that I am unconsciously or indirectly humiliating them, because what I talk about is too abstract when I talk about my categories. And here, if I have to partly not save myself, but to accept certain aspects of myself which are negative, without being morally negative. I've understood this recently, that the negative, I thought in some moments it's just moral negativity, evil, but the negative can hurt. I can hurt myself and others without intentionally doing this. And here, European artistic expressions, The Toad and the Princess, Edward Scissorhands, Elephant Man by David Lynch, Cyrano, partly, he doesn't hurt others, but the idea, it's not, in European, here, that's why Europe, it's, I don't know what to say at this level. Every time I have an idea, there are 5, 10 European cultural references. Socrates, ugly on the outside, the Hephaestus, the Greek god who was limping, and he was rejected. He was in love with Aphrodite, but he was rejected because of his ugliness, etc. Europeans, in the official narrative, they find exceptional artistic ways of expressing very simple. In this sense, I have never adopted this, but Europeans, not Europeans of Europe, anthropological Europeans, predominantly it's been mostly in Europe historically, but white people. David Lynch, an Elephant Man, that's an example of modern American who expresses an aspect of the European soul. And here, in this sense, the artistic, creative genius of Europeans, it's there is no competition. It's I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say. Just I think about one idea that I'm trying to express. Let me here. I will just explain the idea that sometimes I hurt others and I am being hurt, but because of that's my monster aspect, not in the monster is too statistically odd, the very tiny occurrence, namely very high IQ, being completely socially isolated with spending years and years reading books, watching videos, etc. This is part of the story. I can hurt others because of this precisely. Edward Scissorhands, Elephant Man, Hephaestus, and what is the other? The Toad and the Princess, because I am ugly. I mean, physically partly, but it has played a role. My physical ugliness, thinking of myself as being completely etc. But then I realized actually I'm not very handsome. I will not talk about this, but my standards, they are so. I suffer from an excess of standards for goodness, and I cannot reach my own very high standards, and this explains but yeah, my it's not moral nor physical. It's my intellectual ugliness, but with no moral connotation. It's simply that I am an intellectual monster sometimes because
here I am misunderstood because I am in a way too intelligent, and the fact that I think of myself as being not intelligent enough, but it's not a delirium, it's simply that I compare myself with the standards of Hegel. I have reread the book. I thought about this. It's partly I am playing a role here, just what I'm about to say, but because I experienced this just before starting the video, but I'm not playing a role because the admiration that I have for Hegel. I can be very, very negative sometimes, but the writings of not Hegel as I envision him, the boring German metaphysician of the 19th century. My admiration. In a sense, I cannot love Hegel because I admire him. You cannot love someone that you admire. To love is either equal or down, looking down, not in a derogatory sense, but a father for his children, or a husband and wife, or a girlfriend, boyfriend. And to admire means you find yourself down and you look upward. And in the sense, I love, of course, in ordinary language, but I do not love Hegel because, like, I do not love Nietzsche and Kant, namely because the standards, they are so high that I look at them, even when I am really confident and inspired, I still look at them and in this sense, Hegel, here I'm in a joyful mood, but sometimes I am more emotional because, I will not pretend to be, but I am here in the sense of joyful admiration because I've reread some of the passages. It's the genius in terms of form. It's not formal. Oh yeah, if I accused Hegel of formalism, he would be angry. No, that's a joke. No, but the formal aspect. I've just read the simplified version of the logic. It's the simplified version. It's just the simplified logic, but I don't know how it's possible. That's one of the mysteries. Possibility is a determination of the logic of essence. Mystery comes from mystical, which means speculative, etc., etc. No, but seriously, the admiration. This is when I think of Hegel as a lover, and I would say I'm the woman. No, please. No, but in a sense, I say, what a man. That's my vision, partly of masculinity, but yeah, but what was I saying? Yeah, but yeah, so my standards, here I'm a little bit more serious, my standards. My standards, no, seriously, they really, I'm serious because this is what I've explained. I put the link, no, at this moment, when the video is posted, I will have put the link of the video about the formal presentation of the categories. I have suffered a lot, emotionally, psychologically, over the past few months, because my standards are really, here that's the idiot maybe trying to imitate the hero, or the child trying to imitate the father. And I explain this seriously because it has played a very important role in my development, for good or bad, or for both, or for beyond good and bad, I don't know, but I have been traumatized by the standards for many other things, but one of my trauma has been the intellectual standards set by Hegel. And in this sense, I appear as an intellectual monster to people when I talk to them empirically, and it's even more frightening in the intellectual sense, because when I speak normally to empirical people, the difference is that if you are watching this at this moment, in the coming hours or a few days after I publish the video, you are not an ordinary person. In the sense that if you have stumbled upon this channel and if you have followed this this long, you have the intellectual faculties or the interest or whatever. You have been in a way selected by a process that I do not understand. So in this sense,
you kind of get, if you have watched 54 minutes and you've watched some of my previous videos, etc., you kind of know broadly what I'm talking about, or precisely know, but you vaguely know what I'm talking about. You probably have a high IQ, cultural or philosophical references, etc., etc. But the ordinary people that I talk to, empirically, I don't know anything about them, so it's random completely. And the fact that when I lower my own standards, that I know myself to be still very low in comparison to the intellectual standards that I have, it's even more frightening because, yeah. And in this sense, another illustration. The Lord of the Rings. I have identified myself variously over the month with Gollum and my precious, maybe that would be Hegel or the system, the ring of power, clinging to knowledge, maybe, although I've tried to share, but I've identified mostly with Gollum, namely my addiction to my precious, etc. With Saruman for the corruption and partly the betrayal for Sauron because the eye of knowledge, etc. Sauron as well. Sauron, that would be an aspect of the system, namely a totalitarian, etc., etc. And if I have to identify with the good guys, because I'm not just negative, that would be Pippin for my stupidity sometimes. But I am partly Pippin because I try to be brave while knowing myself to be a fool at some moments, and also my real hero in The Lord of the Rings. Of course, like everyone, I guess it's Aragorn, yeah, because he's badass, etc. But my real hero, not my real hero, but no, precisely. The badass, the best, etc. That's Aragorn, for me at least. But the most complex character in the movie franchise, the most interesting. I wouldn't say that Pippin is complex, but Pippin is kind of ambiguous and not ambiguous. He's he's subtle because he's an idiot, but who improves over time, and he has an inner struggle, etc. So I've identified with Pippin in the sense that he's subtle, and Aragorn is the best. Sam is really great, but my favorite, not my favorite, but the most complex, and in a sense partly my favorite, has been Theoden, because, and here I identified, because his struggle is to try to, he's a man who suffers from not achieving the standards of his forebears, his ancestors, because they are so high, and he thinks of himself as a failure, and he has been partly deceived by Grima, Wormtongue, etc., etc. And he's a man seeking a redemption, not a vengeance, but a redemption. And he's the most complex character in the franchise, the movie franchise. Aragorn is the best, but he's also partly complex, but it's more just the good aspect. Gollum is partly complex, but it's mostly negative, and Saruman negative, Sauron negative, etc., etc. Gandalf just positive, etc. But Theoden is very subtle and complex, and if I had to express this, to express my own struggle, is that my ancestors, in a sense, are, like I said, the German metaphysician, and I have moments. Here I've just had the lover moment with Hegel. It's not always the case, but sometimes when I really suffer, I say to myself, but I suffer from being an embarrassment to my metaphysical family, Hegel, Fichte, Schelling, Heidegger, Kant, Nietzsche, Jakob Böhm, Leibniz, Meister Eckhart, etc., the German metaphysical family. And I have my own struggle. That's the story that I tell myself. In a sense, I just want to redeem myself and imagine, like Theoden, that at some moment I will be with the German metaphysicians, and they will not be ashamed of me. In this sense, my metaphysical family, they really are the German philosophers. Like, of course, I think
what would some others or others think of me, and I can feel embarrassment and shame. But in my most profound moments, maybe I think, but what would Hegel, as I envision, what would Hegel and Nietzsche and Kant and the others, what would they think of me? And then, of course, I will not probably not. I will not write a book like Die Kritik der reinen Vernunft. What are the best books for Nietzsche? They are all good. Oh, they are all bad as well. They are all beyond good and evil. That's a Nietzschean joke. I'm not always strong enough to endure the consequences of making Nietzschean jokes. Hegelian jokes, they are the same. No, but seriously. Die Kritik der reinen Vernunft, die Wissenschaft der Logik, Sein und Zeit, then Leibniz, Fichte, Schelling, it's more fragmentary, etc., etc. But in this sense, I cannot write a book as good as the books that they wrote. But precisely, maybe I am here to try to live partly their teachings, which are contradictory. Hegel knew this. Nietzsche as well. Kant, he tried to remove the contradiction. But no, seriously. My struggle is the kind of the struggle of Theoden, to try to be worthy of my ancestors, or not to be too embarrassing for them. That's an aspect of my psyche when I have to use cultural references. And it's partly tied with paganism, the worship of your ancestors, etc., etc. But when you think and elevate yourself spiritually, etc., the ancestors, they become metaphysical in a sense. In this sense, I said it because what I do in daily life, as of now, lately I've been in a mood to try to impress Kant and Nietzsche by being moral. They are contradictory, but my ethics, or lack of ethics, is inspired by Kant and Nietzsche, obviously, and my intellectual rigor by Hegel. And also Hegel, he speaks also about ethics. So yeah, what I want to say is just, I'll conclude by saying, I cannot live at peace with myself while having a double bipolar identity. And here I have decided to try to elevate the intelligence of the French, or the French-speaking people. But there is only one consciousness eventually, but both views are difficult. If I try to awaken the Americans, I've tried to do this. This is what I've been trying to do for, not consciously, because I didn't think about all Americans, but predominantly speaking in English, mostly the American. It's very difficult because there is the barrier of the culture, the empirical culture, the language, the geography. I am thousands of miles away, etc., etc. So it's been very difficult. But the other view, namely to try to elevate the level of intelligence of the French, to put them to the standards of Americans, although my view of the average American, I've realized that actually the average American is as, I wouldn't say uselessly derogatory, is as intellectually deprived as the average Frenchman. Namely, but the problem is that the elites here, the intellectual elites in the US and in the Anglo-Saxon world, they are far above any other elites of any other country. The intellectual, the PhDs, the scientists, etc., they are so far above anyone else. It's kind of frightening as well. But so they are of course much higher than the elites of France and of continental Europe. But both are very difficult. But I've understood that my singular self and my universal self, they have to coincide eventually, and I can no longer live a double life or a triple life or an infinitely multiple life. Namely, I have to be willing to speak my truth to the empirical people around, because eventually I can speak on the internet, I have done this, but eventually to speak the truth requires to have direct encounter with a person that can answer, and I have to be, I would say, under pressure. I have been under constant moral and psychological self-inflicted pressure, and I will not willingly go out and antagonize people mindlessly, but simply eventually I will find myself at some point in a position where I will talk, I guess, directly to people. No, I know that I will, but will it be public or not? Where I will be confronted by others, and I will have to assert my ideas directly, in a way. Yeah. And but my ideas, that's UPS. That's why I've been trying to communicate this morning to a person, and it was too abstract, and it just confirms. Yeah, but the universal is the same for everyone. Americans, English-speaking people, continental Europeans, French-speaking people, Vietnamese, people from Zimbabwe, people from Uruguay, people from Nicaragua. The truth, the universal truth, is the same for everyone, but the universal does not exist independently of its particularization and eventually its singularization. So, if I have the possibility, I will express myself in English on the channel Phénoménologie de l'Esprit, or maybe I will make other videos on this channel, but now I dedicate most of my time to trying to communicate in French, because I try to be faithful to the Americans to whom I owe my intellectual and spiritual life. Not only, but mostly. And I said this in a previous video, to be an American of objective spirit. Anyone can be an American, in a way. I mean, not anyone, but it requires intelligence, strength of character, will, etc. But the idea of America as an institutional idea is universal. That's what I call the idea of libertarianism, inspired by the Protestant, Nordic, Anglo-Saxon spirit, predominantly. And as of now, I want to be able to express myself publicly, freely, because I cannot solve problems if I cannot speak freely. If I can't, I will find a way to solve the problems, but what I intend to do now is to speak publicly as long as I can, and if I no longer can for various reasons, I will speak privately. But eventually, at some moment, I've realized this, people will find that what I have to say is interesting, and yeah. Here I will make a joke. Getting rid of the negative. I thought it's very difficult. It's difficult physically for me because it implies the suffering of the negative. Then over the month I started, but I started to think it will be difficult psychologically for me because it's not as easy as it is. Because the more I think I am not completely worthless, while knowing that eventually I have to be negated, it's becoming difficult for myself in a sense that I am not completely worthless and completely bankrupt morally. I'm not just negative, precisely. Then it becomes difficult morally for another reason. I mean, I have tried to do good over and over again, which has brought about negative consequences. That's dialectical, probably. The attempt to do good, sometimes it brings negative, etc. So, and now, here I will be more positive. So there are 3 negative reasons of the difficulty of getting rid of the negative. Now there is a positive reason, is that it's not that easy to get rid of me. And I say this while I still have, I guess, I know, but interesting things to share. And now maybe in the coming days and weeks, I will become important for the good, at least for some people. I don't know, but because here I will be honest. I've been honest, maybe at my own detriment, but of course I like to be appreciated. When I will be honest, when
when I receive just 1 or 2 likes under my videos, it seems completely insignificant. But when I've put hours of work, and here it's not the case, but sometimes the result of months and years of thinking and trying to make an effort to communicate simply, when I receive just 1 like, it's great for me. And I pretended I don't care, but I've received a couple of letters from people who thank me for having made donations. Well, here I will be good and evil in a sense that the fake leftist, white leftist who say, oh, we make donations for the world because we are good. No, I'm not stupid. I'm not hypocritical enough to say this. But I'm Nietzschean in a sense that, look, I try to do good sometimes for the others, not because I care about the others, although I do, but because when people say, thank you, we owe you this one for the good, I say, I enjoy this. Here I am true to myself for the good because I understood this more than 4.5 years ago. It was in 2018, after I had fallen in love with Stella, become a Christian, etc. I understood that altruism is partly hypocritical, but there are good aspects of altruism, namely when people say, okay, I want to do good for the others. That's what I've been saying, not because I love the others. There are some others that I really love, and yeah, but it's not, I love the others, it's simply because I cannot feel good about myself if the others cannot associate a positive view of themselves partly connected to me. That's love, partly, that's an aspect of love, namely how should I explain this? To make happy people that you don't really care about. This is what happens with the super rich white billionaires who make donations. I mean, they pretend to care, but if they can uplift the life of starving people wherever, well, they do not really care about these people because they don't even know them except that they are just statistics. But in a sense, I will not criticize the left, although the consequences of the humanitarian policies can be negative. The libertarians talk about this, and it's a way to make money, prestige, etc. I get the hypocritical aspect, but then I will not, if I start to be negative against everyone, no, there are people who are genuinely good-hearted, and I grant them the right to do so. Partly the Bill Gates and etc., the superstars who make donations, they are partly motivated by a genuine will to do good. Yeah, but what I want to say, yeah. But if you do good to people that you don't really care about, well, that's kind of indifferent. If you cannot do good to the people that you care about, this has been my suffering. In this sense, maybe I take a risk by saying this, but I'm still trying to please, to please, which partly means good, to please Caroline and Stella and Scarlett. The three at the same time? Oh, that's a challenge. That's a joke that maybe I will regret. I don't know. No, but seriously, yeah. In a sense, yeah, I am frustrated because I have failed to please the people that I consciously want to please. But then, the middle is, there is genuine happiness when one can associate the idea of bringing good to the others with the idea of oneself. That's a Spinozian psychology, but it's kind of consistent. In a sense, altruism, most of the time it's a delusion, but there are people who are altruistic, mostly white people who are pathological altruism, namely they can only feel good if they do good to others. This is an aspect of the white psyche, and this brings about sometimes negative consequences because the others, they are not interested, or the pathological aspect is we have to do good to others, we have to do good, but it's really pathological. It exists within the white psyche. I know this because I have experienced this and I still do, but if you just need to do good to others and you do not do any kind of good to yourself, that some saints, they act like this, but saints is not for everyone. When an entire aspect of the population
precisely the white leftist and the virtue signaling, etc. There are the hypocritical virtue signaling white leftist and the genuinely good-hearted white leftist, but the pathological altruists, they suffer as well. But they have to find a proper balance, maybe to be altruistic, if that makes them feel good, without going into excesses, namely to take care of themselves as well. That would be the proper balance. Yeah. I make people suffer empirically. Empirically. I'm not talking about the whole of reality, all the problem. No, empirically. When I try to talk seriously. And I've encountered this with some libertarians on in the comment sections of a few videos. Namely, when I start to talk vaguely seriously, I receive negativity. Because people, they feel attacked in their sense of self-worth. They haven't said it, but I can understand how they think that, hey, I'm a trained historian, I'm a trained psychologist, I'm a trained economist, I'm a trained a theologian, I'm a trained doctor, etc. That's what they think when I speak about intellectual topics, like, hey, leave me alone, I have my own achievements. That's not what they say, but unconsciously that's how they think. And I have this tendency unconsciously, but now I've understood, to my way of expressing myself, when I express myself more or less seriously, it's hurtful to others. And in this sense, I hurt them without intentionally causing them harm. Although now I've understood, I will try to. That's part of the process. That's part of the struggle of good versus evil. Once I've understood my evil, I can try to mitigate, to alleviate, not in the name of hypocrisy. Namely, in the sense that I still believe that what I've said, for instance, about the Anglo-Saxons, well, I'm starting to regret some of the things that I've said. No, but seriously. I will try to be balanced, but finding balance is part of wisdom. I've excesses of negativity in various forms, but I try to contain, not by rejecting, but by understanding. Yeah, so I try to improve myself. I've understood this. I hurt people unconsciously when I talk to them empirically because they feel they can keep up with the level of intellectual, and they feel this as some sort of an aggression. And where does it come from? Because Hegel never talked to me directly, but for me, I've built this view that whatever I do, it's not good enough for the standards of Hegel. I imagine Hegel with the sinister face on the pictures, the German philosopher. I work for hours, for days, for weeks, for months. I come up with something that I know is not really good enough in comparison with his standards, and I have had this moment where I imagine Hegel saying, well, es ist nicht zu schlecht. This is when it's okay. It's not too bad. That would be it's not very arrogance, because Hegel, precisely, that's not arrogance, because Hegel, the Hegel that I envision, he's not arrogant because he can back it up. That's the difference between arrogance and confidence, in a sense. Here I will praise Hegel. To compete intellectually with Hegel, as I envisioned the 19th century German philosopher, Hegel is never arrogant. He really meant intellectually, maybe some of his writings, when he gets a little bit excessive, in his youth maybe, but the Hegel of the maturity, as the Hegelian scholars call this, he's not arrogant. He has standards. And but when I am not, and it's very difficult, it's almost impossible, to be even remotely on the same levels in terms of rigor, systematicity, clarity, order, etc. I mean, clarity.
That's the dialectical connection between obscure and clear. Hegel is considered to be very obscure, but actually it's very clear. But yeah, I've already understood this. But yeah, in this sense, I have had moments when I felt myself as being kind of humiliated by Hegel, not consciously, but simply because the standards are so high. And this is part of the rebellion of the son against the father. Whatever I do, I'm not good enough for you. No, fuck off, old man. I'm going my own way. That's the rebellious, yeah. But then the father, if he beats you up, you say, I shouldn't have done this. Then maybe the father say, it will have toughened you up. No, don't mess with your father. But actually, secretly, he says, I wanted you to rebel against me because I have to pass on the torch and to not to burn yourself, but simply because maybe that's the master who wants the student to become his own master. Maybe that would be. I will not use a Star Wars movie or whatever training mentor, etc., etc. The training of the mentor. But in a sense, Hegel is kind of a mentor. Yeah. So I reproduce here that mixture of high metaphysics, artistic expression with Edward C. Sorens, etc., plus psychology. That's reproduction of a familial trauma, in a sense that I considered Hegel as my father, sometimes, most of the times. And I inflict onto others unconsciously an aspect of the trauma that I've experienced, namely, whatever I do intellectually in terms of work, etc., it's not good enough. And of course, when I have the tendency to be the weak and self-retreating aspect, but sometimes I have the more assertive, like I resist in a sense. Okay, I will assert myself. I am not completely worthless, and that's what I have done in relation to Hegel, as I envision this, and that's what people partly have done and maybe will do as long as I talk. They will maybe rebel against myself, saying, "Hey, we are not completely worthless." I mean, I have accused sometimes not of being completely worthless, but of being decadent intellectually, etc. Maybe at some point they will rebel against me. And maybe that's a dialectical twist, the negative. I don't know at this point, but if I can help people feel good about themselves for the good, I'm all yours. I will conclude the video. I've decided now I will speak mostly in French. And my ideal is to elevate the truth, which is universal. Eventually, in the coming, I don't know how long it will take. But it can be weeks, months, maybe, I don't know. Not months, because if I succeed, it will spread eventually. But in the coming weeks, let us say, because I conclude, I think that I could, but I've decided. Now I have to balance the singular and the universal, and to be able to speak the same truth, not in the short term, but eventually that's the goal, to elevate the level of consciousness of the people that I am surrounded by empirically to the level of universal consciousness. But of course there are so many mediations that, yeah, in a sense, I just make a remark. I've had the opportunity to talk through a written world with Apollonian Germ and with Caroline. They really are the best. I mean, it's the order I envision is Apollonian Germ, Stella,
Hyperborea and Caroline, because they have gone through all the steps of the process, and they really are the intellectual elite. They are intellectually, they are really the best, because they have gone through all the steps. And I have been stupid, because I have kept repeating this while knowing this. It's becoming more and more clear, and I've had the no, what I want to say that when I talk to Apollonian Germ briefly, his level of intellectual competence, it's amazing. I cannot deny this. It's amazing. But if the best cannot understand, because the reason why people do not understand is because there has to be the full view, there has to be the time, the leisure, the intellect, it's not their fault. That's my Protestant self, you are all innocent because the truth is too complex, you cannot understand, everyone is innocent, etc. That's when I'm a little bit negative, but I'm trying to liberate the mind of people so that eventually they might gain a greater sense of freedom while understanding the determinism. I've understood this recently, that but there has to be misunderstanding with various peoples at various moments because it's so complex. But what I want to say is that even if, and I've had this with footnotes to Plato leaving comments in his comment section, if the most intelligent people, I know they are, in terms of intellect, not just that, they have other qualities, but they are very intelligent and brilliant. If they cannot understand, even when I simplify, how could everyone else on this planet, which is less intelligent than them, how could they understand? And in this sense, the program of German idealism, that's a fragment in the works of Hegel, by officially Hegel or Schelling, is that to unite the intellectual elite and the masses through aesthetic presentation of ideas. That's the oldest program of German idealism. To transcend the divide between the Platonic intellectual elites and the masses. This has been one of my ideas since many years, that I have given up on or forgotten. But precisely, if I speak a truth, which is just for the Platonic elites, let us call this, namely a truth, here it includes, if I speak only a language that PhDs or people with 25 years of training in philosophy can even remotely understand. I've watched my videos that is supposed to appear in the description below about the categories. I make some jokes. I've understood that. And that's part that's connected with the links about intelligence. There's a remark about the sense of humor. If I make jokes that I imagine myself only, let us say, a few dozens of persons on this planet, a few scholars, philosophical scholars with mental problems, some people like Zizek and a few others might even remotely understand, because it requires the culture, the references, partly the insanity. If my jokes can make only potentially a few, my good philosophical jokes, a few dozens of people worldwide laugh, there's a problem, not with my sense of humor, but with my faculty of communication, my ability to communicate. In this sense, I will talk just a little bit more. I will drink a potion. I no longer buy chemical pills. That's part of my minimalist program. But I still have, I will not give up. I will not throw away the useful stuff that I can still consume. But I will no longer invest my money in chemical pills to help give energy. I find my own strength in my will. I try to do this.
sleeping well, taking cold showers. Yeah, sometimes I lack energy, but I will no longer use this. I will no longer buy. Yeah, that's part of the thing that I give up on. But here, yeah, that's the kind of insanity. I have to justify drinking a glass of water with an energy pill. That's the kind of thing that I consider to be a moral sin, because the plastic, because if you contribute to buying chemicals, here it's not drugs, it's chemicals, it's a pill for energy, and it's not an energy drink, it's a pill bought in a drugstore, a medicine drugstore, so it's official, it's healthy in a sense, but what kind of society needs people to have energy drinks? If living was healthy in this society, there wouldn't be so much stress and so much waste of time with the bureaucracy, so much complexity. People would have a simpler life. They would sleep well. They would not be bothered by the constant stress of useless, mindless jobs, transportation, over complexity of modern life with the useless aspect, etc. And these kind of products, they wouldn't need to exist. And the very intelligent people who designed this, they could use their intelligence to do something, I would say, more productive economically, but more fulfilling. Maybe. That's the kind of things that I think about. Just when I drink a glass of energy pill. That might explain why I struggle to communicate, because the kind of moral dilemmas that I have in my mind constantly, they talk about this in the video about intelligence. That's why it's such a great video. And that's why, here I will be a little bit, the totality of world knowledge is made available in real time on the internet. People, if they had leisure and intelligence, and let's be anti-Christian, let's use the word, I will not use the word curiosity, because curiosity is a sin, but a thirst for knowledge, that's more noble. But actually, just if I've had this fanatical Christian self, like it's an aspect of me, not quantitatively very significant, but knowledge is a sin, therefore reading books is a sin, going to school is a sin, acquiring knowledge is a sin, everything is a sin. It seems silly, but actually the Amish in the US, they have kind of this mindset, and it's partly negative in a sense that it's rigorous puritanical Christianity, but they have a good life. I mean, I'm intelligent enough that there are sociological problems within Amish family, but they are white people of Anglo-Saxon stock, and they have one of the highest birth rates in the world. If the world went along for many hundreds of years and thousands of years, they would repopulate the planet, and because they are white, they would find reason to struggle against one another. Some would leave the community, and these white people with Anglo-Saxon origin, probably from Germany or partly continental Europe in the French eastern part, and etc., they would go on a quest to explore the universe. They would build cities, etc., etc., etc. And then the cities would bring about decadence. So the descendants of these people, they would go on farms and isolate themselves and start a religious community based on Puritanism, etc., and this would go on, etc. This is partly dialectic. What was I saying? Yeah, this is the kind of moral torment, and I've decided no longer to be tormented, because I have, over the past few months, the tiniest decision, it's a moral dilemma. I've said to myself, no, I will make errors anyway. I cannot choose the good all the time, not in a sense. No, here what I mean is not good versus evil. It's when there are two aspects of good, namely when there are two principles of goodness or duty, which are, I have to fulfill both. If it's not possible, then picking one over the other, it's evil. And I've been confronted by these kind of decisions constantly. So I try to be
I will not justify myself because if I contradict myself, but I simply I try to act. Then there are the consequences, the principles, moral sense of self-worth for obeying one's own principles, bringing joy to others by the consequences. It's contradictory sometimes, so it's too complex. But what was I saying? Yeah. Yeah. I was talking about energy drink, the Amish. I wanted to conclude videos about intelligence. Yeah. I partly suffer because I really have tens of great ideas of things that I would like to do, which would be great. So there is the difficulty of choosing good aspects of reality, and the difficulty of choosing good aspects about my mind sometimes. I have so much good things to share. Why am I the negative? Here I will be serious. These videos, Psych2Go, I've watched a few of them. I discovered the channel recently. I watch them during my pause, when I eat or when I clean my room, etc. They really are helpful. Here it's really very simple, but to understand one's own determinism, it's really a relief. That's why I'm partly frustrated against the French, against the French elites or the French legislation sometimes, because I've understood this. Here I'm frustrated against myself, against Hegel, because we're in 6 years ago, in around November 2016, when I just started my intellectual awakening. I would write I discovered on Stephen Molyneux's channel the relationship between IQ, the various ethnic groups in the US, and social outcomes of various kinds, welfare, crime, earnings, etc., etc. And when it was a graph. When I watched this, it was like a whoa, because I connected the dots, and intelligence was a relief and was liberating, and I had no hostility against people. I had no idea of my own IQ. I did not even completely identify as white at this moment. I was just discovering a new perspective on sociology. When I understood that there's a connection between IQ and various social behaviors and partly ethnicity, it's not rigorously, it's a bell-shaped curve. I was intelligent enough already not to make the stupid racist mistake. All Asians are intelligent and all Hispanics are less intelligent. No. Those who say, I've made this mistake that all Jews are very, very smart. No. It's a bell-shaped curve distribution. Yeah. But when I understood this, I had no anger or no negative emotions. I was relieved, and I was in a mood of, I wouldn't say forgiveness or compassion, because I was not at all religious, but simply to understand that some people, it's a tiny proportion, but they are determined to act the way they do, in a way negatively within a social context, because of low IQ, high testosterone, etc., which brings about then the proper categories, which brings about social failures in comparison to the standards, namely ability to get a job, to be socially integrated, etc., etc. And if we skip the two first parts, namely the socio-biological, and we just say social exclusion brings a crime, the leftists, they are willing to acknowledge this, then we have to change the social structure, which justifies statist intervention, etc., etc. We forget the socio-biological aspect, which is either stupidity or deception, which falsifies everything in a way. Just to and then the leftists, whether they are good-hearted and stupid, I simplify, or kind of manipulative, they will try to erase the knowledge, but and then they will claim a virtue signaling, saying, "Oh, we are fighting against racism, etc." But no, precisely because it brings about frustration and the relief, just being able to say, okay, if some groups of population are more represented, sometimes overwhelmingly represented in negative social behaviors, etc., it's not their fault as individuals, it's determinism, scientific determinism in all the aspects, not just sociobiology. There's also the social aspect, because it's true that failed economic policies bring about crimes. It's true, it cannot be denied. There can be not just, as the yin and yang, there cannot be just sociology and just biology. Both has to be taken into account. But yeah, I was relieved because I understood, and it was liberating. And the inability to talk about certain topics in the realm of sciences, anthropology, psychology, IQ, economics, etc., history, it prevents people from curing certain problems, because if it could be expressed calmly, publicly, peacefully, etc., the victims, from the perspective of the left, which are the perpetrators, from the perspective of society, they would be kind of relieved if they are intelligent enough. If they really are not, well, they would say, okay, I stole a liquor, I robbed a liquor store because I have a very low IQ and very high testosterone. It was not me, it was, let's blame this on Darwin. And then, who to blame Darwin on? Let's blame this on, I will not blame God, I will not blame Hegel. Who created Darwin? Darwin was not created. It's a process, a result of the evolutionary process. Let's blame evolution. This is the kind of mood here. I'm genuinely joyful with the French. I mean, I'm not downgrading the French. They can be smart, but they do not have the culture, precisely making jokes about Darwin and Stephen Molyneux. It's not possible with the French in this current context. That's why I intend to do. I don't know how long it will last, how successful it will be, but I've already tried to share modern Anglo-Saxon knowledge with a French-speaking audience predominantly, to steal from the rich to give to the poor. Very poor, these French people. Very rich, these... very rich, these Anglo-Saxons, in terms of intellect, etc. But because my worldview, I'm intelligent enough to understand that knowledge is universal, so in a sense, the origin of knowledge on an empirical, chronological, social perspective is of course Anglo-Saxon, mostly overwhelmingly Anglo-Saxon scientists with the spirit of Protestantism, inquiring aspect, the Nordic spirit, etc., etc. But knowledge, the result, is universal in a sense. I can only speak fluently English and French, and I can vaguely express myself in German. It's much more complex, but I can. But eventually, knowledge is the same for everyone. The farmer in Vietnam, the factory worker in Cambodia, the policeman in Chile, the baker in I don't know, in Senegal, etc., etc. Yeah. But yeah, I've decided to try to share the knowledge that I have accumulated in the French language for the reason. First, the noble reason is I try to make things difficult. It will be difficult because the educational and intellectual backwardness of France, it's not the fault of the French people. But I just explained that. That's the truth. That's what I think in terms of... But then again, this is my problem of standards. I have the standards of the United States of America in the 21st century in terms of production of science, and in this sense, it's simply the best. It's not even... it cannot be questioned. In the current world, it's the best. But then I say France is decadent culturally and scientifically in comparison with the US. But here, again, it's my problem in the sense that the French, in terms of science, they have a particular aspect, sociology, Marxism, etc., etc., which is kind of partly universal, but it's specific to France. They have their own culture. But if I'm honest, the intellectual level of the French, because of the intelligence of the native anthropological French population, anthropological European population of French citizenship, namely the French, in the official storyline up until the 1960s, they have always been anthropologically European. The French have forgotten this, but yeah, that's how things were until the 1960s officially. But yeah, so the intelligence of the French and the culture as well. They have kind of gone astray in comparison with the Anglo-Saxon world, but that's one of the particularity of the European family in the broadest sense. Namely, here, Europe as anthropological Europeans. It includes Australia, Canada, etc., etc. Europeans as a people. They really have particularities, and in this sense, again, I have to praise Europe. I don't know much about the particular aspect. I don't know of the European aspect of New Zealand. I mean, New Zealand. No, here I'm being arrogant, Western imperial arrogant. No, but New Zealand as an institutional country is European. These are Europeans who build the institution. But let us say New Zealand, yeah, Australia as a country, which means overwhelmingly European, historically, and still in demographics. I will not make all the subtleties. I talk ordinary. So, New Zealand, Australia, Canada a little bit, but New Zealand and Australia, these are examples of European countries, historically and anthropologically, as countries. Before that, there were native population, but these were not countries in the sense that there were no institutions, official, impersonal, universal institutions on the territory. These were tribal bonds and ties. That's the difference between a primitive, here it's not derogatory, but a primitive mode of organization, like the German tribes before the Roman conquest. It doesn't mean primitive, doesn't mean backward. It means it has not reached civilization, which can be, I'm intelligent enough to understand that civilization can be most of the time for good in terms of progress of various kinds, but it can be negative in terms of moral decadence. That's as old as Herodotus and Tacitus, Herodotus 5th century BCE, Tacitus I think it's the 1st century AD. Namely, the very intelligent people within either a thriving... Most of the time, it's very intelligent people within a thriving civilization who look down on their own contemporaries in comparison with the noble savage. But the noble savage for Tacitus were the Germans. And for the 18th century, Rousseau or the intellectuals, these were people from... It is recurrent throughout the European history. Montaigne in the 16th century, these were the Brazilians, the native Brazilian. They were not Brazilian. I will actually. The native population of the Southern American continent on the territory which would later become Brazil. Is it clear? Amerindians, they are called. But Amerindians come from Amerigo Vespucci, I think an Italian merchant, I think he was Italian, who gave his name to the continent of America. And yeah, but the natives, they are called... In anthropology, this is the specific ethnic group the natives of the American continent, whether from the north or the south, these are the terminology is not important. I think it's native Indians or native Amerindians or yeah, but it's ethnically distinct from other racial groups, and the northern from the southern, but in a less prominent way, which means there is continuity, but proportion, different proportion in the sense that Europeans, white people, there's a continuum within the white spectrum with various subgroups. The same goes for the Amerindian population, namely the northern, and then there are the various tribes, the Cherokees, the Apache, Cherokees. Then I have to think in French because I have to go from English to French, back to English again. Iroquois, yeah. I don't know all the tribes, but yeah. And then those of the Southern American continent, etc., etc. What was I saying? Yeah. Herodotus, Tacitus, Montaigne in the 16th century, the 18th century, Diderot, Bougainville, Rousseau, partly the noble savage. Why was I talking about this? Yeah. Yeah, because of Australia. Yeah. Australia, New Zealand. These are examples. I don't know anything empirically in terms of Australia and New Zealand, which are for me European countries. It's not for me, they are European countries. Demographically, historically, as countries. Still predominantly. But I don't know much. I know a couple of authors, etc. But this just explains that if we take Europe, here Europe is defined as anthropologically European people wherever they have settled and built institutions or civilizations or countries, etc. Australia and New Zealand, these are particular aspects of Europe, which means the wealth of Europe. It's infinitely wealthy in terms of yeah. So why was I saying this? Yeah, because the French, they are there's a particular French culture within the European family, like there is a particular Australian culture from the European perspective, New Zealander, also Argentinian, also Bulgarian, it's partly European country, in terms of geographics, it's a European country, in terms of population, predominantly, but they are partly mixed, etc. But each European country, if we think in terms of country, which are European, not of the continent, but because of the population, Uruguay, Argentina, partly Brazil, partly Chile, etc., they add an aspect, they reflect an aspect of Europe, here defined as the anthropological totality. And each, as a country, has its own specificity, its own particularity. And within each country, there are the various regions, etc. And within each country, there are the various ethnicities of European. The universal would be European, namely almost every, not all of them, but almost every European country is populated by various subspecies of the European race. There are the Germanic populations of Eastern Europe, there are the Slavic population of Central Europe, there are the Mediterranean population of Southern Europe, there are the Alpine with the Nordic, etc., etc., the various classifications, etc., etc. What was I saying? What was I saying? Yeah, so in this sense, French, yeah, the standards. Okay, it's been 2 hours. I wanted to talk for a few dozens of minutes. I compare the standards of the Anglo-Saxon world, which includes Australia, New Zealand, and the British Isles and Canada, with the US. That I call this the US to simplify. Actually, I know American life as such because it's much more prominent. But when I say the Anglo-Saxon world, these are Great Britain plus Canada. I will not. You are intelligent enough, I guess. Yeah. So the US, they are of course the best in the modern world, intellectually, in terms of development of spirit, the development of science, in terms of competence. They are the best, while being decadent. They are the best. It's so overwhelmingly obvious, yeah. But then I downgrade France in terms of intellectual standards of the elites in comparison with the US, but I'm intelligent enough when I'm not willingly or unconsciously playing the idiot, that the standards of France in the 21st century, here I'm not talking about the historical perspective where the French poets, the French writers, they really are on a different level with whatever America has produced in terms of poets and writers. Here I have to give credit to the great French writers, and everyone can acknowledge that French literature is one of the 4 or 5 greatest in the world in history, with probably the English, the Greeks, France, England, ancient Greece, and then I would say Germany and maybe Russia, maybe Roman, ancient Roman literature, maybe Russia, maybe Italian, I don't know. It's not, at this moment, it's not really important. But what I want to say is, yeah, the modern standards of 21st century France in comparison with 21st century America in terms of achievement and competence of the elites. Of course, France is much lower. Not just because the numbers are 5 times lower, I simplify, but the intellectual level, it's much lower. But I am intelligent enough to understand that the intellectual standards of France, they are way above most countries on this planet. This is connected with what I said, I don't know now, more than one hour ago maybe, that I can appear as negative because I have a tendency, for example, to trash talk the Americans in terms of intellect and the French. But I know, if I'm honest, that the level is very high nonetheless. That's why I in this sense, I can appear, I guess, as a very arrogant Western arrogance. But here, I will not back down in a sense of, oh, I am guilty. I take responsibility. I have to take responsibility for most of the sins, etc. But the West, the Westerner, when they are intelligent, vaguely they criticize the West. When they are more intelligent, they defend the West. But the intellectual legacy, which is still being developed every day, there are videos, let's not talk about the movies, the books, the scientific discoveries, etc., etc. The standards, they really are very high. Yeah. I will conclude with the video about intelligence that I watched before making this video. That's the first one that I will post. Is the most recent that I've watched. I've not studied it. I've just watched it once as entertainment, well, not as entertainment, but as a relief during my pause. I have a tendency to be compassionate with people that I consider inferior intellectually. I do not judge their moral value, because here I will take an example. Yesterday I spent the entire day cleaning my room. Not just when I say clean my room a few days ago, it was really clean in the sense of over here. I really cleaned my room like a cleaning lady. I did this for the entire day. It was exhausting, it was difficult, it was demanding. It can be worse, but I experienced myself as being a cleaning lady for more than 10 hours. And I am not, in a sense, I am not derogatory against cleaning ladies, except that I've done this while being partly disabled, being a man. I'm not sure it's an excuse. Oh, if I start using excuses, the cleaning ladies, they will not be happy. You know what it's like to be a woman? No. That's a joke. No, but I was a cleaning lady for almost 10 hours. I'd say 10 hours, probably 10 hours, yesterday, while being partly disabled. And in a sense, I do not downgrade cleaning ladies, but as a cleaning lady, I can be competent because my apartment is really clean and ordered, and it's really job well done. I've never been disappointed by the cleaning ladies that I've had the experience to interact with. They were competent, but I can be competent as a cleaning lady as well while being disabled. So what I want to say is that I can be looked down unconsciously on people who are inferior in terms of, because here there are those I look down from the perspective of intelligence because I trash talk them because I know that they are intelligent and they are supposed to have high standards. When I trash talk the Anglo-Saxons, of course, I do not think about the native English people with an IQ of 80 who have difficulty in their intellectual life or whatever, or in their life. I don't think about them, obviously. When I say the Anglo-Saxons, I think about the PhDs, the scholars, the politicians, the people who are supposed to be competent, and most of the time they are, if I'm honest. Not the politicians. I mean, depending on the purpose. But when I trash talk Dawkins and Lawrence Krauss, etc., I know that they are brilliant, obviously. But here, that's my problem, is that I compare with the standards of metaphysical Germany. But of course, I'm intelligent enough to know that Dawkins is very competent in his field. I cannot compete in the sense, I cannot compete with an evolutionary biologist. What's gonna happen to me? That's a joke, Mr. Dawkins. This is the kind of joke that... Well, what I want to say, is... What was I saying? So I have this tendency, when I'm intellectually confident, because I'm intelligent enough to understand that I feel sometimes worthless, so I need to compensate by an arrogant self, and my arrogance comes from when I assert myself as a German. Sometimes it's because I try to find confidence because I feel worthless. I'm intelligent enough to understand my psychological determinism in real time. Not always, but as of now, I understand. But sometimes when I know that people are intellectually inferior, and here I'm not talking about intelligent people, I'm talking people with a lower IQ, but I don't blame them because it's not their fault. Here I'm really honest. I cannot be resentful against someone with a low IQ who is modest, etc., because it's statistical distribution. If there are people with an IQ of 120, there has to be people with an IQ of 80. That's mathematics, that's logic, it has to be so. So in a sense, I cannot be angry, and if I am dishonest, and really it's really negative, I have really no... it's very difficult to justify, etc. But in this sense, that's what I say. I have compassion for people who are really lower in terms of intellect, not in terms of morality. Because I've explained the example of the cleaning ladies, the competent cleaning ladies. Usually I'm intelligent enough to know that they have a slightly above average IQ for the standards of the cleaning lady cluster. Because IQ is partly correlated with competence in most jobs, even those who apparently do not require any kind of intellectual high standards, but actually it is, because it requires organization, order, structure, etc. But in this sense, they are inferior in terms of simply quantitative distribution, and here it's not derogatory at all. Like tall people, short people are inferior, but it's not moral, it's not a judgment, it's simply
common sense. It's not negative in a sense of morality. But I have a tendency to be compassionate towards these people because precisely if they encounter hardships in their life which are caused by a lack of intelligence, it's not their fault. If they suffer to maintain a job or to find a job or to get a promotion, or if they suffer financially or economically, or if they cannot read or write properly, or if they have problems with alcohol or cigarettes or drugs, etc., I'm intelligent enough to understand that really this is not their fault. It's here in ordinary consciousness, it's society. That's my leftist self in an intelligent way. And then I am angry against the social elites because they are the ones responsible in an ordinary consciousness for bringing about policies which bring about negative effects for the least privileged. In this sense, I am really a leftist sometimes, in the sense that I want the good of even when I'm good. I can be, in this sense, I can sometimes consistently be a leftist, or even when I'm a right winger. When I'm in a balanced mood, I am a good right winger, the Charles Murray type or the Ron Paul type, namely a kind of a libertarian right winger, or even there are other forms of right wing policies. They claim to want the good of the people, but actually they do. That's the good-hearted right wingers. Charles Murray, that's the ideal for me because he's good-hearted, but also intelligent, and he understands that in order for a policy, not a policy, but a political organization, which is the absence of established, centralized, institutionalized organization, precisely, he writes this at the end of the bell curve, and most of his book is that a good society is a society where everyone can fit in, but not at the expense of others, namely everyone know his or her place, but everyone has a place. That's the ideal. Because the ideal of the left is everyone has a place, but all places are equal. And the ideal for the negative left and the ideal of the negative right is that everyone knows his place, but not everyone has a place. I will not draw, it's clear, I guess. The ideal, the noble ideal really is in the middle, like everyone fits in, so everyone has a place. That's the leftist idea. That's what Charles Murray writes at the end of the bell curve. I translate with my own understanding, but that's what he meant. But at the same time, there is an order and a hierarchy. That's an aristocratic, an aristocratic popular society. That's the ideal, sometimes taken by the right, of the Middle Ages, reactualized. Well, sometimes the right wingers, they fantasize about the Middle Ages in Europe. It's partly true, but there were, in their view, politically, it was balanced in the sense that there was order and hierarchy, but the small people, sometimes they were relatively free, in the sense that they were kind of oppressed by the lords, the landlords, etc., but nonetheless they had much less taxes, bureaucracy, and the quantitative proportion of taxation was way lower than what it currently is. They had way much freedom, not political, but in their day-to-day life, in a sense that, here I am not an expert, but that's how I envision this, namely, there was, the Marxists, they wrote about this, that at some moment people, they had more leisure, because there was not a constant work all along the year, because the crops, of course, the work could be very demanding, but the Marxists wrote books about this, namely, there was not the obsession about quantitative production, it was just, they had a very simple lifestyle, it was very low standards of living, but there were not just negative aspects. I try to talk in a balanced way, but I understand. Namely, both the right and the left, the Marxist, the intelligent Marxist left, and the intelligent reactionary right, they have nostalgia for some aspects of the political organization of the Middle Ages for the reasons that I've just explained. It's not very rigorous, it's not very serious, but that's what I have understood. So yeah, and Charles Murray, of course, is not nostalgic of the Middle Age, although some libertarians, they praise some thinkers of the Middle Ages for their ideal of liberty. The Catholics, I think about Mr. Tom Woods and Ayn Rand, about Aquinas,
I will not pretend that I'm a Catholic now, but some aspects can be good about Catholicism. But seriously, Rothbard, Rand, and Thomas Woods, they praised some aspects of the libertarian genesis of the libertarian thought in partly the Middle Ages. It's not completely here. It's intelligent. The Middle Ages, they are not completely dark. They really are great cultural, civilizational achievements in Europe. I'm talking about during these ages, of course. But actually, I will praise Europe again. If we take Europe as the history of its people, it's constantly being amazing. I mean, sometimes it's difficult for Europeans and for others, but it's amazing constantly. It's a constant source of amazement and wonder for whoever has the time and the leisure and the interest to get interested in such topics. Yeah. I don't know what I was saying. I wanted to make a pause. What did I say? I know what I said, but I try to rewind back. The video about intelligence, humor, lack of friends, yeah, the standards, yeah. I wanted to make a reference to this video, so I will rewatch the video, but I partly suffer from this. And I have already said this, but I have to cure this because for me, an IQ of 130, it's very high. But I'm intelligent enough, or maybe too intelligent, to know that it's not on the same standards as those with an IQ of 160, 70, 80, 90, the real quantitative geniuses. I mean, there can be very highly intelligent people quantitatively who do not really achieve, but usually the greatest achievers individually, Aristotle, Plato, Newton, Pascal, probably Darwin, what's his name? Leonardo da Vinci, Einstein, and Hegel, the empirical Hegel of the 19th century officially. They had probably, Galton, his tests were made, Feynman, in a way, they had very high IQs. So in this sense, my standards, I've lived in a fantasy world, it's not a fantasy world, but I've lived in a world where the standards were so high that and here I will end on a kind of a tragic note, but consciously I have wanted to do good, to try to achieve. I thought that it was for the good, and I still do, because in a way, intelligence, how do you say this? Intelligence, structure, order, rigor, etc. When it's not fanatical, it's really good. But yin and yang, etc., etc. But it's good. It's usually considered good. Intelligence, for most people, it's good. Order, clarity, but systematicity. Precisely because too much clarity. I will stop making this. It's not a joke, but too much clarity becomes blinding. Yeah, but in this sense, I have attempted to really do good, and it has become evil unconsciously from the perspective of my empirical consciousness. I really did not know what I was doing. I will not say, I mean, I will have to take the blame for the negativity, but there are aspects of my evil, or let us call this negativity. Yeah, really. I have discovered this recently over the past few weeks, that there are many aspects of my negativity that are really in a way unintentional or accidental, in the sense of Edward Scissorhands, etc., etc. Aspects, not everything, but aspects. And in this sense, my consolation, only God and me can here. I think about God, and we share suffering together, because it's a suffering that is this kind of suffering. It's really tragic in a sense that there is nothing to do against it. It's pathetic and tragic, but without the it's a suffering which cannot be it cannot be blamed on. It could maybe, but it's simply an ontological suffering, which is how should I explain this? It's a suffering for which there is no one to blame, and which is not a moral suffering in the sense of morality. It's suffering I think about Jean-Jacques Rousseau. And the romantics, here these are not the German romantics, partly. Exactly. This is romantic suffering in a kind of, I would say, the good sense. There are only good aspects in romanticism. Stella is romantic in the philosophical sense. Yeah. No, that's really the romantic suffering of the writers and the poets, whether they are Germans. In Goethe, he was not a romantic, but he started. He partly expressed the emotional aspect without the excesses of feminine emotion, but the masculine emotions of the suffering romantic poet expressed in some works of Goethe. Rousseau, he's considered to be one of the founders of Romanticism, and then of course the following romantic writers of the following decades in Germany, France, and England. Lamartine in France, the German poets, the English poets and writers between the end of the 18th century for the first premises of the movement and up until the middle decades of the 19th century. So for many decades, at least 4, 5, or maybe 6 decades, there have been various poets expressing a suffering of the soul which is not moral, in the sense that there is no sin. It's not torment in a sense that it hurts, but it's not a torment of the soul. It's simply a pathos, pathetic in the ordinary, not in the ordinary sense, in the rigorous sense of it hurts, but that's just how it is in a way. Yeah.
I will conclude talking about psychology. I could be a great psychologist, but I would say, lost myself or found myself in metaphysics. And I've just reread briefly, because here I will confess my sins. I've spent more than probably 10 hours doing a cleaning lady job, but for good reasons, because cleaning my immediate environment enables me to liberate time, order, structure, etc. So it's not just, oh, I have nothing better to do. First, it's important, and second, it's really part of putting order at all levels, starting by immediate environment. So I granted myself the right to take some leisure, which means for me reading speculative logic. That's maybe the kind of insanity that for me to have leisure means to read books which would be considered unbearably boring or unintelligible or torment of the mind. The torment of the mind is the appeasement of the soul for me. The torment of the minds of others is the appeasement of my soul. That's kind of poetic. I could be a great poet, maybe. No, that's a joke. No, but seriously, I granted myself the right to read for maybe 2 hours a book about logic. And of course, Hegel talks about the soul. I forgot because, yeah, but there is a connection obviously between metaphysics and the soul. Because metaphysics is the thinking, there is thought, and I've invested a lot in pure thought, but there is also the soul. And I've never studied psychology, I've already said this, as such, in a textbook. I've read a few passages. But I understand the psyche of white people, others as well, because that's the particular which enables to understand other particulars. Because here that's really useful. If one understands one particularity, whatever it may be, one understands all the others. Well, if one understands oneself as a man, one understands women. Although without ever having encountered women, maybe a very few, which is true for me. Yeah. No, there is Stella, etc. But yeah. But what wanted to say? Yeah, yeah, about psychology and metaphysics. So now I will keep cleaning my room, not in a cleaning, rubbing, etc., but in ordering type of way, while listening to this video, because no one watches my video, so I watch my own video because I draw inspiration and intelligence, for the good sense, from my own videos. I do not have the time to watch all of them. That's part of the torment for another reason, that the more I watch some of my old videos, not all of them, but some of them, they are really good, given the context. I thought at some moment that everything that I had produced was garbage, but of course, in comparison with the standards of etc., Hegel, it's not okay, but it's not, I'm not saying it's not on the same level as here I would defend myself. Hegel, when he wrote his first book, which is quite vague, etc., he was 37 years old. He had training, theology. He had Schelling as a friend he could talk to. He had a very high IQ. He came from a Protestant family of theologians, etc., etc.
I am officially 30 years old. I have had none of the education, I haven't had the IQ, and I've worked under constant pressure when I've published videos. Hegel, he was not under pressure. He was in his office teaching to, how do you call this? Personal tutor, personal mentor for kids of rich families. Yeah. So Nietzsche, he had problems, physical, psychological, so I don't blame Nietzsche. And Kant, well, I'm talking about the empirical lies. Nietzsche, I understand him because he suffered constantly through various physical pain, love, failed romance with Lou Andrea Salome. He pretended to be tough in his writings, but actually he suffered from a failed relationship with... I've never read fully the biography of Nietzsche, nor of Hegel, nor of Kant, because I've understood soon enough that their biographies are not really interesting, but now maybe they would shed light on their writings. That's what Nietzsche would say. Yeah, so I draw sometimes inspiration from my older videos. There is embarrassment and negativity, which I know, but some of them, they really are inspiring for me. So I draw inspiration from my own videos. I do not talk to myself because maybe I do, but that's part of my ethical teachings. How can I expect others to watch my videos if I do not watch them myself? So I will watch this video, I will listen at least to the video while cleaning my room and then working on what I intend to work on. Yeah, I will conclude saying that every empirical encounter, every time I read a book, every time I watch a video, every time that I encounter a person, I become smarter. Yeah. So in a way, I keep getting better and better intellectually, and it's the kind of intellect which brings wisdom, partly resentment as well, but wisdom. Not always, but sometimes wisdom, because here I will conclude in a Christian way, which will explain what I've been saying. In a way, I am intelligent enough to understand in real time most people that I interact with. And this is kind of a problem because it really means that I'm really very smart. I do not always do this, but I can be very smart because I understand in real time without forcing myself. And I could have amazing discussions. I could be a great teacher in terms of strictly theoretical aspect. Then there is to be a teacher means to really willing to apply one's own teachings. I have to take the negative, yeah. But I could teach, I could have very interesting things because I have understood the trick. It's not a trick, it's the formula. It's not a trick, it's a formula, because I've understood, thanks to was mich nicht umbringt, macht mich stärker. All the negative, I still will encounter more negativity, but every time that I encounter negativity in empirical conversation, I strengthen in a way because I understand more why I have failed and why I have been misunderstood, and now I've understood. It's clear that the reason why the people I have talked to empirically or on the internet, but empirically, why they don't react when I speak about what interests me is simply because my level of consciousness, even when I lower it, is way too high. It's not a pride, oh, I'm much smarter than you, because when it's against ordinary people, I feel no pride. Eventually, in a competition against very intelligent people, scholars, etc., you think you're smart. We'll see that. I'm talking, imagine really people who think, oh, I'm super smart because I'm a scholar, a PhD, whatever. They are very competent in their own field of expertise. I do not doubt this in any sense. They are much more competent than I am. I'm intelligent enough to know this because I haven't had many years of training, but simply in terms of global intelligence, as I call this, a total view, it's not their fault. That's the problem, that it's no one's fault. The misunderstanding of the others, it's not their fault. So here my Christian self, oh, I have to forgive everything and everyone, it's just a big misunderstanding. But there is an aspect of me which does not tolerate some aspects of reality, because I say to myself, as long as I live, I can work and improve myself, and what I demand from myself, I can demand either of the others, or at least demand from the others that they improve the aspects that I have improved in myself over my lifetime. That's what I say more and more to ordinary people about. I have overcome cigarettes, alcohol, porn, being overweight, fat and sugar, renouncing partly comfort, etc. Many things. I used to be a parasite, a welfare parasite. I'm a welfare parasite. I work hard. All the good things, the little victories that I have achieved as an empirical individual, I'm more confident in talking to others by saying, look, I've had small hardships in my life. I have overcome them with slightly my will. I've been helped by the circumstances, by God as an entity, by others, okay. But I cannot spend my time saying, I could, but then if I am guilty of everything, if I am completely worthless, that would be really the passive Christianity of that would be Buddhism for the negative sense, like, oh, everything is good for you, everything is bad for me, you are all forgiven, all your stupidity, etc. I could do this, but honestly I don't want to. Maybe that's my negative sense in the moral sense, but it's not negative morality, it's simply I want to improve myself and my immediate surroundings and eventually everything, because everything is connected. I want to improve. And is this a sin? The will to improve, if it's a sin, there are worse sins, I guess, or if it's a sin, it has to be justified in the sense that, am I justifying sin? No, if the will to improve oneself, not by being completely reckless, but simply the will, okay, as long as I live and breathe, I will try to work on myself. That's what I've been doing. I work on myself. Here I will express one of my new theories briefly. I've imagined concentric circles. I'm not sure that this is how it's expressed. A small circle, a larger circle around, larger circle, etc. And it radiates from the center. That's waves from when one throws the pebbles within the water. There is the center, and then it radiates waves in all directions. But the center, that's an aspect of my self-understanding. Would be my soul or my mind or both. Myself as not as a physical. I've done this mistake. I thought 4 years ago that I had to improve myself physically in terms of beauty, strength, bodybuilding, clothes, etc. That was a mistake. It's part of the process, but that's a mistake. Now I have to improve myself, my soul and my mind. That's why I do introspection by meditating and simply by watching my own videos and thinking about my psyche. I read a little bit of logic, either my own notes, and I reconstruct myself, I think myself, or I granted myself this is the kind of guilty pleasures, the kind of sins. I still call this a sin, but just reading a book about logic, for me, for 2 hours, it's kind of a sin. But it's a guilty pleasure in the sense that I've been working the entire day yesterday. This morning I have partly do what I consider work, and now this is not really work, but it's part of my work as a philosopher, to share my thoughts. So now I will grant myself also the right to read a little bit. So what was I saying? Yeah. Introspection, psychological introspection, working on structuring my mind through logic, So to order my soul, first by understanding my soul, to order my mind by understanding logic, then to radiate order, clarity and structure in my immediate environment, namely my apartment, my documents partly, but now I've been mostly focused on my apartment, my daily life in terms of making supplies, getting rid of useless, minimalism, renouncing comfort. So I toughen up my body by renouncing comfort, cold showers, etc. I toughen up slightly my body. I introspect my soul. To introspect, I'm not sure it's a verb. I would say analyze. I consider my soul to try to understand. To cure my soul or to fix or to improve, it's difficult because first I have to understand. It's very it's not obscure. I mean, there are obscure aspects, I guess, but it's mysterious. It's still vague because it's so. I would say it's complex, but maybe my soul is complex. I never thought that I had a soul. I never thought it would be complex. I was like Dawkins up until recently. So yeah, introspection, mental strengthening by mental in the sense of intellectual. Strengthening of the will, partly by renouncing comfort, taking slightly bold decisions like talking to people, for instance, asserting myself a little bit more, ordering my immediate environment. So that's the small circle, larger, while still communicating with, this is an example, my thoughts, either by giving lectures in French or talking randomly with the Americans, or with everyone eventually, but with English-speaking audience predominantly at this moment in time or in the coming hours and days after the videos have been posted, etc. And yeah, I've understood I cannot solve universal problems if I cannot solve problems. Eventually, I have to solve problems. That's the story that I tell myself, but it's really the truth. Eventually, I have to solve problems, all the problems eventually. But what proportion do I have myself as an empirical to solve and what the others or the interaction, I don't know, but the story that I tell myself as of now is I have to solve problems. And it begins, that's what I think, by the soul, the mind, the will, the immediate environment. I will will still leave this apartment every day as long as I can to do my ordinary groceries, supply, interactions, etc. Maybe I will leave this apartment physically, I mean, at some moment, but at least it will have been ordered. But immediate, the mind, the soul, the will, the immediate environment, and then I will try to solve empirical problems, personal problems, the problems of my immediate surroundings. That's what I do with the beggars. I try to give them work to do. I've started cleaning partly the street and encouraging people to clean the streets, etc. So I'm trying to, while not giving up completely on universal problems, I still try to follow the news and to read books, etc. But I try to start by the center of my world, which is myself, eventually. Oh, is there? I'm a narcissist. That's Max Stirner. I never read Stirner, but he's a German philosopher. I have him in my library. That's one of the missing. I've never read Stirner, but he was kind of a. I'm a little bit curious, but I will renounce curiosity. But Max Stirner. I know he's a German philosopher that I've never read and not even studied at all, almost. So I try to begin with myself, because I think that I cannot solve other people's problems if I cannot even solve my own problems. And trying to solve the problems of others while having oneself problems, I mean, eventually I try to do both, and I know it's partly the right thing because I draw inspiration from the others, etc. But yeah, I know, as of now, I try to begin with the singular in order eventually to fix the universal. So I invert the perspective. Again, maybe, but Here I will say what I think. I will be punished for my honesty, maybe, or not punished. I will be honest. I express an opinion. I mean, maybe again, opinions are worthless, etc. No, but if I could be with Stella peacefully, the empirical girl of the United States, and if she could live with me in this apartment, or maybe I would use my money to buy to rent a greater apartment, to buy a greater, or whatever. If I could be with Stella peacefully, maybe she would like me, and together she would do the cleaning. Oh, he's becoming misogynistic. He wants to use women to do his home work. He's being exploitative, toxic, whatever. If I could be with Stella peacefully, she would like aspects of me. I would like aspects of her as well. All the aspects, eventually. Maybe sometimes it's difficult, but yeah. And she would help me, and I would focus on my work, and it would be me and her, not against the world, but with the world to solve the problem. That's the plan that I had 4 years ago. I mean, I didn't plan of using Stella as a cleaning lady, but that's a joke. But I wanted to be with her. First to appreciate her presence and to enjoy talking to her. That's what I envisioned. And then I said we would solve all the world's problems together. But we would be, you would be my wife and I would be your husband. I mean, not officially, maybe, but yeah, no, maybe I'm losing it a little bit. But I thought that we would bring stability and peace and joy and order and yeah, to do the world.